Hey, She Ace That listeners, find us on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. Every subscribe, like, and follow goes a long way, and I can't thank you all enough for your support. And with that, let's get into today's episode. Hey, everybody, welcome back to She Ace That. It's your host, Alexandra. Today I have someone super special, one of my role models when I was a younger player at Michigan State. She's played from age 8 and competed at Michigan State for pretty much 6 years, overcame a devastating knee injury, and now is coaching the next generation. Alex, thank you so much for joining She Ace That.
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. I'm really excited to be here today and share a bit of my story, and maybe it can help inspire someone else.
We're so excited to have you here. And before we dive in, you're getting married very soon. So,
Yes.
congratulations. And
Thank
tell
you.
us a little bit about what life looks like for you right now.
So right now life is a little chaotic. We are getting married October 4th, so we're in the kind of the final stages of planning. And then because wedding planning wasn't enough, I also took a new position at work 3 months ago. So trying to, acclimate to that and make sure I'm giving my best at work while also feeling like I have a second full-time job with wedding planning that has pretty much encompassed my whole life, work and wedding planning at this point.
It's like your two full-time jobs. So
Yes, it 100% feels like that.
I'm so excited for you and congratulations on work. That's awesome too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a new challenge and then, that can be hard at times, but definitely worth it.
So let's go back to the beginning of your volleyball journey and sports journey in general. I know you started playing when you were 8 and you looked up to your big sister when playing volleyball. Tell me about little Alex and wanting to be like her big sister.
Yeah, so my older sister and I have a 6-year age gap. She was trying out for club volleyball at New Boston, and my mom took me because I was too little to stay at home by myself. I grabbed a volleyball and I was in the setting against the wall and like just trying to keep myself occupied throughout the tryout. And one of the coaches came outside and walked up to me and she was like, "Oh, who are you?" I was like, "Oh, I'm Alex. I'm here with my big sister. She's trying out right now, so just trying to keep myself busy." And she was like, "Well, do you like volleyball? Like, would you ever want to play?" And I was like, "Yeah, I really want to play." And she had said that she was trying to start like a 10U program at New Boston at the time. She was like, "Well, can I talk to your mom?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah." So I ran out and I grabbed Cheryl and I was like,
I
"Mom,
love
this, this,
Cheryl.
ugh, she's the best." I'm like, "This woman said that she's going to try and create like a 10U team. It'll kind of bundle with the 12U for practices and stuff. And then we'll do like our own tournaments." And I was like, "I really want to do it." And she was looking at the coach. She's like, "She's really young." And she was like, "I know, but she has the passion to do it. So why not?" So growing up, Caitlin had always played. We went to Catholic school, so we had CYO. So you start in the 5th grade and then all through high school. So I had always loved watching her and I just always wanted to be just like her. I had the opportunity to get started kind of early, which was great. My first coach, her name was Chrissy. I loved her. She gave me every fundamental possible to help make me into the player I turned out to be. It was a really cool time, and I got to start early just kind of out of a chance discussion in a hallway.
It's hard to start that young in a specific sport. Like CYO is a great opportunity and option. And then at club having a 10U team is really cool because playing at a club level that young, you get so many different experiences over time. Do you feel like that really shaped you as an athlete having those different club experiences from 8 to 18?
Yeah, absolutely. I had the opportunity to play for quite a few different clubs throughout my time. I played from 8 to 10 at New Boston, went over to Victor's for a season, and then moved to Michigan Elite, which is where I spent the majority of my club career. And I think that every club has a different philosophy. You get different coaching, you get different opinions, different level of play for sure. So I think that starting young really opened the door for me and allowed me to be in a gym where like we had such a great culture and I continued to kind of move around until I felt like I had found my home and like every club I played for played a role in making me the player that I am. I'm always thankful that I got to bounce around because sometimes when you start later, you don't get that option. You feel like you're cemented where you're at and it's too hard to move. But because I was younger and I had a little bit more length in my career, I was very happy to have the opportunity to go to different clubs and see different coaches and levels of play.
It's really cool to have many coaches as connections, right? And coaching forums, and you're playing with a bigger pool of athletes. Do you remember there being a reason why you left a certain club and went to another? Was it always just opportunity based and tryout based? What was your decision making when deciding to transition somewhere else?
When I was younger, it kind of just went with like, where are my friends going? It wasn't anything based off of volleyball, which probably wasn't great. My first switch from New Boston to Victor's was motivated by my friends at that time in my life. And also my coach had, left the club that I was at and was moving on to Victor's. So I kind of followed her over there. I was just a kid that constantly wanted to play. Like I felt like I had kind of found my niche. I didn't really like many other sports. So I was always looking for camps and opportunities to get touches outside of season. So I had done quite a few camps for Michigan Elite at that point, and they had approached me and my parents and said, we think Alex would be a great fit for our club. We have different variations of competition as far as what team she could make. We have national level programs, which would be harder competition. She'd get to play against the best of the best and also get to compete with the best of the best. So I made the jump to go to Michigan Elite when I was 11. I played on their 12U team, and I'm very thankful that my parents were able to give me the opportunity to play at that level. It's an expense and a time for parents. So I was very lucky and fortunate. Sticking with Michigan Elite was awesome. I got to play with some of the best girls that were playing volleyball at that time. It was a great opportunity to see the other half. I never really wanted to be the best girl in the gym, whether it be at practice or a tournament, because you learn from other players as much as you learn from your coaches. So it was a great opportunity to move on to that next level of competition.
That's a great point too, is going to the camps throughout the summers at a club to get the visibility before trying out for that club.
And it lets you kind of see their coaches and their culture. And if you would
Mhm.
even like it, club's a huge commitment. And you want to make sure that it's a space that you like and you're comfortable and get along with the coaches and your future potential teammates. So I always think it's a great way to see, like, do I like this culture and would I potentially want to spend 6 months playing for them?
What position did you start out with volleyball and where did you end?
So when I was younger, I really wanted to be a setter. And I write with my left hand. I predominantly hit with my right now, but being that age and being left-handed, like a setter seems like an obvious choice because they can train you on hitting as well. I set for quite some time. My coach was great because she never wanted us to get siloed into a single position. She wanted to make sure we tried everything because we were so little. I predominantly set until I hit Michigan Elite. I did continue to set for a little bit of time, but I loved being an outside. I really just wanted to be a six rotation player to play in the back row. Again, a lot of great competition, a lot of great setters. So I just transitioned to being an outside through what did my team need at that point. I went to a bit of a smaller high school. So again, kind of fitting where I needed to. But in high school, when I sat, we kind of made the rotation so that I would still be able to hit as an outside in the front row and set from the back younger. And then I got older and I was like, I do not like this. This is a lot of running. I give setters all of the credit in the world. You're 100% the quarterback. You're running everything. You're deciding who gets to make the play. You're just what
Mhm.
play runs. It's a lot of thought process. Not that being an outside isn't, but I definitely gravitated more towards being an outside as I got older.
I always think of Sam as she was so good at making sure everybody knew what they were running, setting things up for success, and reading the court of who to set. She was one of the key people I've ever played with that comes to mind as the quarterback of a setter. Since you have some of the setting background, did that help you become a hitter and vice versa? Did you understand from the setting dynamic where to expect the ball? Did that give you a little bit of a different focus on what to do as your role as an outside hitter?
I do think being a setter when it came to hitting, because I feel like when you are a setter, you spend a lot of time looking at what's happening on the other side of the court. I think every player should do that, recognize what defense they're running, who are their solid blockers, what do your matchups look like. So I do feel like it helped me look at the other side more carefully. Also, it helped from the mental perspective of like understanding why I would or would not get set. Sometimes you feel like you're really hot, and as a hitter, you're like, set me the ball. I can put this down. But if you're looking at the other side of the net and I have a 6 foot blocker against me and my right side has, 5'6", doesn't really jump that high, isn't covering the line, you have a better understanding of why certain decisions are made. I think it helps be a little bit, I don't want to say like nicer to setters, but sometimes I
Yeah.
feel like setters get the blame a lot. That set was too far in, too far out, too tight. I need it higher. I need it lower. When you're the one in that setting position, you're giving it your best. You're doing it your all. Not every set's going to be perfect. So I think it helped me be a little bit more forgiving in those instances. Like positive feedback is significantly better than just getting mad. So I think it helped frame me into a better hitter to look at the other side of the court and realize that, I'm not the best option right now.
With setters, they're always trying to get, higher, lower, closer than off the net. They're always working with each hitter individually. There's also a line though where the hitter also has to be adaptable too. It can't always just be on the setter. There's not always going to be a perfect pass for there always to be a perfect set. When there's that perfect set, when you get that kill, it's the best feeling in the world. But at the same time, it's on hitters to adapt and be more flexible, especially as an outside, right? Because you have a little bit more time, a little bit more of an angle to the court versus the other hitting positions. When you were in high school, was there any unique team dynamics that you had, or did you feel like you had a really good high school career in volleyball?
I went to Gabriel Richard in Riverview. I came in as a freshman for tryouts. The way they had it set up was that freshmen and sophomores tried out together from like 5 to 7:30 or something like that. And then juniors and seniors would come in and do their tryout. So just because, amount of kids, amount of coaches, you want to make sure every kid gets seen. The first day I went into tryouts, I was with the freshmen and sophomores, and then they asked me to stay for the junior and senior tryout. They were really nice though in letting me do both tryouts for the remainders of the days because where I went to elementary school and middle school, there was only one other person going to the same high school. So I was like, okay, this is my chance to maybe get to know some people and like make some friends before school starts. I was thankful that they let me kind of do both so that I could meet my potential classmates. I did make varsity my freshman year and played on varsity for all four. Um, so sometimes I felt like the odd one out. Everyone else was so much older than me. I'm like 13, 14 years old. But I will say that like everyone was so great, so accepting. My freshman year, there were like a group of seniors that took me under their wing. I think they could sense I was feeling a little uncomfortable. I felt like I was missing out on spending time with people my own age. But we had a really great high school team. My coach, Jim Mathis, is an amazing guy. He'll actually be at my wedding in a couple of weeks. Like we are lifelong friends now. But yeah, I feel like I had a phenomenal high school experience, even being the younger one for a while and being afraid of what my role would be on the team, being so young. I loved every second of my high school experience.
It's a big age difference, like freshmen to seniors in high school. And I think it's really cool that the seniors did kind of take you under their wing versus looking at you as like a threat, because I think sometimes
Hmm.
dynamics can be looked at differently. Like, why is that freshman getting a spot when there's maybe a junior that got cut? There's so many dynamics that come with it. I'm glad you had that experience of feeling accepted and backed by that decision by the coaches. Your first couple years on varsity, did you ride the bench? How was that dynamic?
The way that we used to do tryouts was that you had a face to face conversation with the coaches when tryouts were over. So I know some schools choose to do letters, some schools choose to do like names on a board. And if you're on there, you're on. If you're not. So when I went in for my conversation, I was the last girl in the gym. It was horrifying.
Wow.
When I walked in, he sat me down and he was like, like my coaching philosophy has always been like, if I'm going to take a younger player, I'm not going to take them to ride the bench. And at that point, I was like, I'm on JV. Like, this is not going to go my way. But he said, you're going to be a 6 rotation player on this team. So I did actually start and play all the way around most of the time for my freshman year. And that kind of continued through my senior. So I've always stuck with that coaching philosophy. I think that you can always pull a kid up for practice if you feel like they need more like touches with a higher level of competition. But I never want to take a kid just so they're going to ride the bench because you need that playing experience too. Being in a practice and being in a game and playing in front of all your friends and family, especially in high school when like you're just a little bit more unsure about yourself, your confidence might not be there. You need that time playing in those game type situations. I
Yeah.
was happy that I had the opportunity to start and play in the large majority of our games because I don't think I would have been happy even being on varsity as a freshman, sitting the bench because I wouldn't have gotten the game time experience.
It is important to have those reps, and the more you get earlier on in high school, the better it becomes as you progress. I feel like even as freshmen, we're still a little bit like baby giraffes. It's like still figuring, you're still getting the
Yep.
dynamic. Like you had so much experience prior to high school too, but it's like you're still just getting the hang of it, and the more the better, so then you can get that muscle memory locked in and find the new dynamic of your high school team. So after high school, what happened with your volleyball career? What was the decision you made and when deciding to go to college?
Yeah. So my junior year, I was really set on playing volleyball in college. Like I wanted to continue on. My parents and my club team were a great help in preparing for the recruiting process, making all the highlight videos, reaching out to coaches, playing for Michigan Elite at such a high level. You do get exposure because college coaches are constantly walking around the gyms. They're looking at those 15, 16-year-olds, especially for some of those bigger schools. Towards the end of my junior year, I hit this wall where I felt burnt out. I resented myself for playing club so competitively because, I mean, we would be gone. Like a lot of our tournaments out of state, weekends where your friends are throwing parties from high school, like you're missing those. Somebody has a sleepover, you can't go. Your friends go out for appetizers after school, you can't go because you have practice. I got sick of just being known as the girl that was good at volleyball. So my senior year, I made the tough decision and talked to everybody and said, I don't really want to play volleyball in college. And I definitely think it came as a shock to my club coaches and my parents. It was kind of a shock to even myself, but I felt like I just needed to give myself some space from the sport because I was starting to resent it for missing out on other parts of growing up. We used to have these things called on-sites at school where college would come in. They would have already had like your application to the school, and then they tell you right then and there, like you're accepted or you're not, or you're waitlisted. So we had a couple of on-sites. We had like Saginaw come in, which I applied there too. And Michigan State came in, and I was like, you know what? If I'm not going to play volleyball, I want to go to a big school. So Michigan State came in, I got accepted and made the decision to go. But I also made the decision that I would not be playing volleyball there. So I had no intention of playing competitively ever again at that point. Moved into campus first week of freshman year. I was so overwhelmed. My high school was very small. We had less than 100 kids in my graduating class. You knew everybody, you knew their parents, their siblings. Everyone was very kind of tight knit group. And then I walked into my first lecture hall at MSU, and it was like 500 people. And I was like, this is more people that went to my entire school, and they're in one class. So I think the transition from like smaller high school to huge university was difficult on me. I had a hard time making friends or breaking out of my shell because I don't want to say that you were forced into friendships when you're in a smaller school, but your circle
You're
is
stuck.
your circle.
Yeah.
I struggled a lot my freshman year at MSU. I actually tried to drop out after the first semester. I like came home. I was like, I just want to go to Henry Ford. I want to stay at home. And my dad was like, that's not happening. He was like, you're not quitting. You have to go back. So I went back after Christmas and stuck it out. And I'm very glad I did because it obviously ended up being one of the best experiences of my life. But after that gap year from volleyball, I came back sophomore year to Michigan State, and I was like, you know what? Like, I need to go back to it. Like, I'm missing it. I played a bit over the summer, like with my friends. I just felt like that could be my connection to like making better friendships in college because it can feel kind of isolating on a big campus and you can go a whole day without really seeing anybody. That was difficult for me, but I think I needed that year to step away, miss the sport and not resent it anymore, to come back and be able to play club there.
A very common theme when going to a bigger school, it happens at smaller schools, but obviously easier when you go to a school like Michigan State, is that first semester is like a culture shock. For you,
Yeah.
it was, especially being from a smaller school, but I remember feeling like it wasn't home yet. I wanted to find where I fit in. I wanted to find the routine. Routine changes every semester. Your friends ebb and flow depending on what you're in, if you're in a club or whatnot. I do highly recommend for people to try to join something. Like even if you didn't make club volleyball, you would have found something else. It makes or breaks your whole college experience and the friendships that we all had and the consistency with sports and being athletes. It's so hard to just stop being an athlete. Like you were an athlete every single month for over 10 years. Taking a step back shows that you can still have that sport in your life regardless. You went back to it. You still found a way, even after a gap year, to play competitively at an even higher level than you've ever played at before, which is so cool. It's interesting when people didn't try out for the team their like freshman year and then still make it as a sophomore, junior, senior, and there's still those opportunities. You said Michigan Elite was helpful, to a point. You got a lot of visibility and conversations that way with coaches, but unless our coaches went out of their way to tell us or help us getting recruited back then, it wasn't really something that was common.
No, 100%. And you touched on something about coming to school and college being a culture shock. From coaching high school athletes, I tell them my story that I almost dropped out, but pushed through. And I know that that won't be everyone's experience. Some people just, it's the best for them, their mental health, financially, to drop out, go to a smaller school, do community college for a couple of years. But I always try and tell them it can be a shock. You're away from your parents for the very first time. You have to do everything. Like there's nobody guiding you. You have to make your own decisions. If you stay out until 2 o'clock in the morning and miss your morning classes, that's on you. It's the first time you really have to take accountability for how you're going to spend your time in college. It's important for high school athletes or high schoolers in general to think about how much they're going to be in control of their life, and that can be scary. But also to kind of continue to push yourself to explore new avenues and give yourself new challenges.
I know multiple handfuls of people that I was at school with at State that felt that same way at some point in their college career. I could list 5 people right now off the top of my head that I know debated dropping out in my grade.
Yeah.
December comes around, they're like, do I stay for another semester? All of them stuck through it, and I couldn't imagine my life or their lives not sticking through it. But it is that hard decision of, okay, I could revert back to maybe something that's a little bit more comfortable, but does that mean you'd be any happier? And I don't always think that's the case. Everybody does have to do what's best for themselves. If you do need to go back home for personal reasons, or that is what's best for you, that's totally okay. But I love that you pushed through it and it led to better things. It was hard for me to be away from home. I'm a homebody, and I just think it was something that at that time in our life as adults, you recognize it's uncomfortable, but then you find the people that will push through it with you.
Absolutely.
And I feel like we found that with Michigan State Club Volleyball for sure.
100%. Club volleyball saved me being in college. It's part of the reason that I graduated, was because I felt like I had found my space, my people, and my home away from home within the club volleyball space.
One main topic I do want to get into today is the injury that you experienced, because that was so life-changing for you in the moment and in college, and that is a weird transition time. You took a gap year off of volleyball and now you got it back. Can you just take me back to the moment that it happened?
It was the start of my senior season playing club volleyball. We were going to our first tournament at Central, and it was our first game. I didn't feel any different warming up. Like, I look back on that day and I'm like, did I miss something? But I don't think I did. I got a set to the outside in the middle of our first set. I went to swing, landed on my left leg, and I felt like I slipped a little bit. I heard a pop, and that was it. I was never a kid that yelled for my parents, or like, you get hurt and you like try and walk it off and you're like, I'm fine, I'm fine. This was not one of those times. I knew something was wrong. In volleyball, you have to play through till the point is over. We don't stop for injury. So I'm trying to like roll myself off the court, like trying to let Sammy know that like, you can't send me. I'm literally not there. I'm sure everybody heard my screams, but yeah, I knew it was bad. Like, I knew it wasn't like a normal injury.
Ankle roll or anything like that.
Exactly. So they took me to the hospital over at Central. I was too swollen for them to do a lot of the stuff they needed. Truthfully, you need an MRI anyway. At that time, they thought I had torn my MCL, which would have been a 6 to 8 week recovery. No surgery most of the time, can just rehab it with physical therapy. So I came out of that being a little bit confident that like, okay, this hasn't completely ruined like my senior season. But unfortunately, that was not the case. I ended up coming home, seeing an orthopedist surgeon, and he got me an MRI. I will never forget when my mom came down and told me they had gotten the news. So I had torn my ACL, MCL, meniscus, the triple threat, and that I was going to have the surgery. I just remember my mom was crying. I was crying. It was my senior year. It was supposed to be the best time of your life in college. I was like, okay, it's over. I just played my last volleyball game and I didn't even get to finish it. I went through with the surgery. Prior to that, due to some weird circumstances, we needed a coach for our club team. Everything has a funny way of working itself out. Because I was injured, I was like, I could do it. I could coach. It was my first stab at coaching. So it kind of helped me find the love for that through the time of my injury. I was coaching. I decided not to get surgery until December. I wanted to complete that semester of college. What's weird with an ACL injury is that you can feel completely fine. Like, I felt so fine before surgery. Obviously, I'm not running and jumping and playing volleyball, but I'm walking
Right.
fine, going up the stairs, like everything's okay. I did some physical therapy before surgery. I was coaching you guys. Then I had the surgery and I was like, this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me. Because you go from walking around and being okay, and then you're completely immobile. That was rough. The recovery for that is very, very rough. I came out of my surgery and I had an immobilizer that went from the top of my hip down to my ankle. Can't move. The pain sucks. But I'm thankful that I had the support system I had with my family and even you guys. I remember before I had surgery, you guys made me a little volleyball blanket to take to the hospital and some bottles of wine to help me. I was very lucky that I had like such a great support system going through my injury and my recovery. And I mean, even post surgery, I couldn't really drive yet. And my parents were driving me to MSU, so I could still come coach with you guys and see everyone and try and keep my spirits up. I'm definitely not thankful that the injury happened, but I'm thankful that I had the best support and some of the best doctors and rehabilitation specialists to get me back to where I was.
Did that impact your length in college too?
After I got injured, I was living in the lodges, which is like all outdoors basically to get up to your apartment. Elevators. I had my surgery in December. So coming back and going to school for second semester kind of wasn't an option. I'm an hour and 48 minutes away from Michigan State when I was at my home, and it just wasn't feasible for me to get up there, go to class. The fear of slipping, I'm on crutches. Michigan State is snowy and icy at that time of year. So I did end up taking a semester off of school. That second semester did extend my time in college. But I will say that is the absolute best thing that ever came out of my injury is that I got a little extra time at Michigan State and was able to find my way back to club volleyball and back to playing for longer than I had anticipated, which I am always just so thankful for.
It's such a comeback story because you finished school, taking time off, and you were able to come back and play effectively. I remember you being a little cautious when you were back to playing because how traumatizing, having the injury happen in the first place. Gosh, you don't want that to happen again. You just went through so much. And there's the whole physical recovery, but then there was the mental recovery too, and transitioning back into playing. Can you talk about that fear of jumping again, attacking with a blocker there, and trusting the person next to you? How did you navigate that?
I was kind of lucky where I was in life when my injury happened. Michigan State rehab facility was doing something called Prepare to Play. Thank God for my dad. Like, he really researched where can I get the best rehab, because a lot of places like they'll get you to the point where you're like walking, running, then it's like okay, you're on your own. But this program was specifically tailored to get athletes back to their sport. A lot of the rehab I was doing was movements that I would be doing on the court in volleyball. And I truthfully think because I went through this Prepare to Play program, that's how I got back to playing so quickly. 6 months ish after my surgery is when I got back in the gym. It was summertime. My old high school used to run like a kids camp. So they would always ask for like volunteers to come in and help. So I went back in and was volunteering there. A girl a few years younger than me in high school was also there. And she was like, do you want to try and hit? And I was like, oh God. I was like, I guess.
You're like, can I even remember how to approach?
I know. I don't know. So I was like, medically, you're cleared. You're fine. I had passed rehab. My doctor was like, you're better than ever. You can get back to playing. I remember that first hit, and we literally did it like no one else is around. The kids are all in the cafeteria eating. She's like, it'll just be me and you. And like, she said it for camera. She's like, I want you to be able to like remember this. It was truly terrifying. Like, I look back on when I got injured, and I believe it's because I used to have a very bad tendency of landing on my left leg and not landing square. So I definitely push that with my athletes, and I show them my scar, and I'm like, I think that's why I ended up like this. It wasn't even necessarily the fear of having a blocker or someone next to me. It was a fear of myself. Can I land correctly and properly? And so I had my first hit and I was like, okay, I'm okay. That moment after where you're checking yourself and you're like, did I break anything? Did I tear anything again? But when I hit that ball, I felt like I was so high in the air because I was so scared. And I went back and I watched the tape and I'm like, you could slide a credit card under my feet. That's how terrified I was. But
Yeah.
I'm glad that I had the opportunity to get some gym time in before coming back to Michigan State and doing our open gyms because I got some time to like be by myself. The high school coach at the time wasn't my high school coach, but I had been helping her with camps and stuff. So she used to let me come in and practice with the girls or come in by myself and do some serving and stuff like that. I'm thankful I had that time to be on my own, to build up my own confidence without having teammates or players. I think walking into my first open gym at MSU, if that had been my first time playing again, like would have been very overwhelming. There's a lot of girls you don't know. It's a
Yeah.
scary time. I would definitely say that the mental side of my injury was sometimes even worse than the physical side. Every time I went up to hit for the first few months, like all I could think about was coming down, hearing the pop, and like screaming. Sammy was my setter at the time, and she to this day, she'll be like, I'm the reason you tore it. Like, I pushed that ball too far outside and you swung, and that's why it happened. I'm like, no, Sam, it wasn't you. But when we came back and it was our first open gym, like, I could see her being nervous. And I'm like, you can't be nervous. You need to not be nervous. This wasn't your fault. It had nothing to do with you. It might not have even had anything to do with me. So, kind of building back up that confidence was difficult, but I think a lot of it came back because I had the opportunity to rehab with a fantastic facility and then also get some time to play on my own and get my comfortability back before coming in. I played with my knee brace for an extremely, extremely long time, even though my doctor's like, you can take it off. I'm like, I can't. It's a mental block. Like, I have to wear it all the time now. Now, when I play as an adult, I don't really wear it, but I think I wore it for the remainder of my college career because that fear is always in the back of your mind.
I looked up to you so much because even though you were probably on the more reserved side of playing, you still were an incredible athlete and an incredible outside. It goes to show that like there are ways you can come back. It might take slow steps and it might take time, but you can still perform at such an incredible level. And a lot of people allow injuries to stop their sports careers, or if you're preparing to go to college, your high school or college coaches might just expect you to perform and you're not taking care of your body enough. And it's like, now when I think of my son playing sports down the road, like I want him to be so cognizant of injury prevention. You can't avoid all accidents, right? Like that's why they're accidents. They can happen whenever. But I think it's just so important as athletes to be trained properly. Like even hitting form, I never was trained the proper hitting form, and I have like a half torn labrum that I'm knock on wood not going to get surgery on because I don't want to deal with it. But it is impacting me now, especially in our times. We were not protected that way. You just play through the injury, you play through the rolled ankle, you tape it up, you play through, obviously your situation, you absolutely should not play through, no coach should ask you to. But a lot of the simple things like that, you're just expected to push forward. And so I think it's says a lot that, even if it's a minor injury, it's good to take a step back and realize that doesn't mean the whole sport is taken from you. Yes, that match might be, the rest of that season might be, but it doesn't define how successful you were in your athletic career. I've sprained both my ankles many times. Like when we were at nationals once, and I just remember big games were coming up for us, and one of the girls on our team just allowed a ball to roll under my ankle during warm-ups. I was so upset after because it was such a it was something so silly. It wasn't this huge ordeal of me stepping on someone's foot during the game. No matter how little or big they are, it's awful, but it's just so disappointing. We just want to control and avoid everything in that realm if we can.
No, we definitely do. And you did touch on something coming back and being a hitter again. I felt like I became a smarter player because of my injury, not even just in the form sense. I wasn't jumping as high as I was post-injury, pre-injury. I was still building back up to that. So I had to be a smarter hitter. I was no longer power outside. I had to take smarter shots. I had to recognize that blockers were significantly bigger than me and I'm not jumping as high as I used to. So I sometimes think that injuries can make people better players. I never wish an injury on anybody, but I do think it made me a smarter player and a better player in the long run.
That is a great point. Playing smarter, not harder, and you can still be just as effective. Like we used to have that one
100%.
drill where, what was it called? Tips versus hits. One side would only be able to do tips and roll shots. The other side could only hit. And it was just very interesting that both sides could be extremely effective and then ineffective at the same time. And that was a really good drill. I love that drill.
Yeah, that was.
a good
That really was.
For Michigan State Club Volleyball or any collegiate club volleyball, you go to nationals at the end of the year after we travel for all of our tournaments. We have some amazing experiences of going to a national championship together. I know you've been twice. So can you tell me about how that feels and your journey of going to nationals at that level with that many collegiate teams?
I love nationals. If I could relive one moment of college, it would be all of our nationals trips. You get to play against so many teams that you've never seen. There's so many things going on. The men's teams are there, so you get to watch them play. It's a very cool experience. My first nationals after my injury was when I was coaching. We did make it to the finals and it was awesome. I was like, okay, this is so cool. It's my first season coaching. But I also had a breakdown before we walked into the gym where we hosted the final, who was my coach when I started playing at Michigan State. He saw me crying. He's like, what's going on? And I was like, I should be playing. This sucks. I've never made it to a national championship and I don't get to play. This is horrific. I've wanted to be in this gym with my teammates playing on a court for the last 2 years that I've played at the college club level, and now I don't get to. And he pulled me aside and he was like, it's almost more of a accomplishment to make it here as a coach. He's like, they got here because of you and the coaching decision you made. You brought them together and made this team. But it was really hard for me to be there and not be playing. But that was really cool to get to coach in that kind of arena. I mean, obviously, I've grown as a coach since then. There's a lot of things I would have done differently, but I think every coach feels like that looking back on the beginning of their career. We did end up coming back to nationals the following year when I was playing, and we did make it to the national championship again. Unfortunately, we didn't win either of those, but coming in second in the nation is nothing to hang your head at. The energy that you feel in those moments and in those spaces, there's nothing else like it. I'll be chasing that high for the rest of my life.
I've never felt like that in my life. I went to the national championship with you the one year, and I've never felt so nervous and intimidated in my whole life. And it's like our game, and just so everybody listening, like this is a huge arena, like tens of thousands of seats. We didn't have a ton of people watching because that like each match, depending on if you're men's, women's, depending on the level, goes on throughout the day. So we were one of the first ones in the finals for our national championship. And so I couldn't have imagined though, like the men's that play that night, they have,
No,
I don't even want to know how many people were in that arena.
everyone's done playing. They're like the final match of everything.
Yeah, we've never played in that big of a gym before in our whole entire career. So it's a really cool
100%.
experience. Nationals is probably my favorite thing about looking back on club volleyball. It's because of the environment. Everybody's there to be competitive, but we're also on a vacation, even though I know we're taking it seriously until the last day when everybody parties. A good time and so much good memories.
Same. There's nothing like it.
I have a question for you regarding navigating drama in sports. We navigate social dynamics. There's so much more to sports than just playing the sport. Have you had any issues with a coach or parents in general?
I definitely have had some issues with coaches in the past. And I think that when you're younger and you're a player, you don't really see things from their side. Being a coach now, I have a whole new respect. A majority of the coaches that athletes will play for have a full-time job. They are doing something besides coaching and they are taking extra time after they get home. They've had an extremely long workday to come in and coach and give 100%. And they're writing practice plans, they're watching game film, they're doing so much that none of the parents or athletes see. When I used to have some issues with coaches, I'll look back on one time when I was in club, I was like 14 and all I wanted to do was be an outside at that point in my life. My club coach sat me down and she was like, I don't think that you should be an outside. I think you need to be a DS. Everybody was growing. I was no longer growing. I'm 5'8", and I think I've been 5'8" since I was in the seventh grade. And I was so mad at her. I was like, I want to switch clubs. I want to be somewhere where I can hit. I didn't quit. I didn't come back that following year. I pivoted to another club and then came back the year after that. But I wish at that time that I could have seen things through her eyes. She was a phenomenal coach. Her understanding of like fundamentals and how to like implement them into game type scenarios is something that is insane. At the time, I was so angry. So, I mean, I remember coming home and talking to my parents, and I'm thankful that I had parents like this. And they were like, well, if that's what your coach says you should do, that's what you're doing. It wasn't oh, we're going to call and make a complaint. And I did end up like continuing to have conversations with her about like, are there opportunities where I can still hit and practice? Like, even if that's not what you want me doing in a game, like I am in high school, I'm an outside in high school. I don't want to spend 6 months like not getting any training as a hitter. So we ended up finding a middle ground. But I mean, looking back, she was 100% right. Like I had some college scholarship offers like my junior year to some D2 schools, some smaller D1s, MAC. But like if I was a DS, like I probably would have gotten a lot more at some more competitive schools. I think it's always important to have the ability to look at your coach and understand that they probably do know better. Like they've been around the sport a lot longer. They know what they're doing. Sometimes you have to have faith that they have the right outlook to get you to where you need to be. I don't regret taking that year, pivoting, going to a different club, and then coming back. Truthfully, I didn't want to be a DS. It would have made me better in college 100%, but I still could have come to the same conclusion that I didn't want to play in college. And then I would have been playing a position that I didn't really enjoy that much, but was doing so that I could have some better scholarship offers. So when it comes to dealing with any drama, whether with a coach or a parent, you just have to remember that like there's two sides, there's two different outlooks, there's two different people looking at everything, and you have to try and find some sort of middle ground. It can't just be I'm going to quit and walk away, or I'm going to lodge a complaint, try and get this person fired or something like that. There has to be those kind of like open conversations where you learn the other person's side and they learn yours.
At that age too, we think we know more than we do, right? Like
Oh
we
yeah.
think we know everything. We figured out life. You turn 14, 15, 16, you're like, I know everything. I know everything about the sport. It's crazy how much even college, my volleyball IQ skyrocketed in that environment. You're just smarter. Our frontal lobes are a little bit more developed. We maybe have coached or have other experiences of looking at the sport differently. I appreciate you being transparent and sharing it because it does still say a lot that you were able to play at a different collegiate level as an outside hitter. Also, I think that is a little bit of validation, looking back of how it was meant to be, that you still stuck through it and fought for that for yourself. But at the same time, you brought another point to it. Like if I played back row, maybe my trajectory of my life and volleyball career would have been a little bit different. But I think everything's meant to be. And I still think at the end of the day, if you are playing a sport and you love a certain position, it's okay to vouch for yourself. You handled it right with having communication and conversations with your coach directly by yourself versus pulling in your parents. It's such a hard thing to navigate. And now from our coaching perspectives, we have a huge respect when it comes to girls coming to us first and handling it without the drama, without bringing in other people's playing time, without having to make a situation worse than what it is. Because like you said, we're there from the goodness in our heart. You're already selfless, not spending time with your family on the evenings or weekends or your kids. It just is part of that whole dynamic. And I think everybody needs to come with a little bit more compassion when it comes to that stuff.
100%.
Well, when we're older and wiser.
Well, you when you grow up. But yeah, I agree. And I think that like for any athlete, and I try and instill this in all of the kids that I coach, obviously age plays a factor. I don't expect a 10-year-old to come up to me and have, the same conversation that a 15 or 16-year-old would. But like coaching JV and varsity, I am always the biggest proponent of like the athlete needs to come and talk to me one-on-one first. I want to hear their side because sometimes their side and their parents are not the same. And I think that that's very important, is to be able to give the athlete a chance to advocate for themselves. We can always pull in parents if we're unable to see a common ground or we're not getting anywhere. You can always pull in your athletic director after that point if needed. But I think having that initial conversation teaches our athletes how to advocate. When you're at a job in 10 years, your parents aren't going to be there to talk to your boss about how you feel you're being treated unfairly or this project shouldn't just be handled by you. They're going to have those conversations. Circling back to college and advocating for yourself and learning your own life and dynamic, I try and prepare my athletes for what their life's going to be like. And it's not always going to be that your mom and dad can come in and have the conversation for you. Like you need to have it yourself.
What message do you want young players, especially ones that are coming back from an injury, to take from everything that you've shared today and from your journey?
Your mental game and your mental health is just as important as your physical. So take the time to make sure that you're mentally there. My old coach Money was a big proponent of visualization, like seeing yourself get the serve over the net or get the kill or get that perfect serve receive pass. I've carried that into a lot of different aspects of my life. Also being able to have open and honest conversations with your teammates or your coaches, as in like, hey, like I'm having a really bad day today. Like mentally, I'm just not there. Like I'm afraid to play right now. Could I take it a little bit easier in drills? Could I have a couple seconds, just hit some balls against the wall to get my feeling to where I need it to be? Being able to be open and advocate for yourself. And I think not every day is going to be your best day of volleyball. Some days you're going to walk in and you can't do anything right. Can't get my serve over. Like, what is going on? I always tell kids at the beginning of our tryouts and throughout the season, you don't always have to hit the hardest or have the best passing, but I do expect you to be the loudest and be 100%. Give me all of the effort that you can. If you are hitting every ball out of bounds, but I see that you're giving the effort, being loud, communicating, bringing your team together, I will take that 100 times over a kid that doesn't talk, won't be a part of a team, very uncoachable, but hits the ball well. You've got to find a happy balance of even on your worst day, you can still be the hardest working girl in that gym.
That's really wonderful advice, and I completely agree. As long as we are cognizant that we're leading with genuine intentions for ourselves and for others, and that we're leading with passion, like that's all you can ask for. I don't want anybody to allow a coach or another teammate or the social dynamics or injuries like to take away something that can be so amazing too. So I appreciate you sharing all of that so much.
Yeah.
Sorry. Well, Alex, this has been so incredible. It's been so fun to catch up. It just means the world to me to still have you in my life and be connected to you through volleyball. We've had so many experiences together that I appreciate and will cherish forever. I've looked up to you for so long, and I appreciate you coming on She Aced That.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been great getting to catch up a little bit about where we are in our lives. Truthfully, for anybody listening, if you're like, I don't want to play college volleyball, but I want to do something, look into college club. That's how I met Allie. That's how I met so many amazing people. It keeps your love for the sport. There's always a chance to pivot and look for another option. So thank you for having me. I had a great time.
Thank you. And thanks everybody for listening in, and we'll see you next Wednesday.